When asked what the 1920s were like, the first answer for many people may revolve around speakeasies, flapper girls, mass consumption, the emerging of the middle class, or financial bliss. Together, these people, places, and themes help create our idea of the Roaring Twenties. With 2022 marking Hobart College's bicentennial, the 1920s stand as a halfway point between the creation of Hobart College and the present day. Is our idea of the 1920s accurate? What was it like to be a student at college throughout the Prohibition? How different or similar was student life 100 years ago compared to today? In 2021, Hobart College and William Smith College are combined, so their total undergraduate population is over 1,800. Hobart College students comprise 47% of that number, which means the Hobart College today has a little bit over 850 students. Looking back 100 years ago, Hobart College had 250 undergraduate students in 1924. Today, the majority of students live in on-campus housing, but in 1924, there was more diversity through commuting students and students who chose to live in the town of Geneva as well as on campus. In 1924, 18 students lived in the town of Geneva, 13 students commuted to campus, 100 lived in the various fraternities, 33 students boarded in town, and 85 lived in on-campus dormitories. Arguably, one of the greatest impacts on the 1920s and earliest 20th century as a whole was prohibition. Despite alcohol's illegality, its consumption was central to our popular knowledge of the 1920s. Speakeasies and bootleggers are narratives almost all Americans are familiar with. Today, drinking culture is a large part of the college experience. Did prohibition directly impact Hobart College students in the 1920s? The president at this time was Murray Bartlett, a Harvard graduate. He introduced various traditions to the school year, including costumed balls at commencement that were definitely very popular among the graduating student body. There were rumors spreading that at some of these commencement balls, President Bartlett was acting under the influence of alcohol. After this rumor began to be spread, President Bartlett refrained from openly drinking alcohol at these balls and other college events. Prohibition was a national issue, and President Bartlett's scandal was not the only interaction between Hobart and Prohibition. Local newspapers, like the Geneva Daily Times, reported on Prohibition as a Christian issue, and the consumption of alcohol was a social and moral dilemma. Hobart College's association with the Episcopal Church brought the values of Prohibition onto campus in a very direct way. In 1927, Mr. Lofton Wesley, a prohibitionist, visited campus and lectured in 2 classes on the vital question, prohibition. The connection with the Episcopal Church and the visiting of speakers like Mr. Wesley did not completely convince Hobart students against the consumption of alcohol. The Hobart Herald, the school newspaper, discusses the abundant consumption of liquor at the Frolic, which was a dance put on by the Hobart freshman class. To all at the Frolic, it supposedly appeared to be a dry affair, and no students from both Hobart and Cornell were caught consuming alcohol. The article also mentioned how Kappa Betas are known to be against prohibition. The consumption of alcohol, while nationally illegal at the time, was mentioned in passing in varying Hobart yearbooks. Poking fun at a student at the senior banquet who drank 2 beers, disappeared, but came back to make a speech, and in that speech he was quoted by saying, "Fellers, I hope you all graduate." Therefore, it is reasonable to assume that the consumption of alcohol was not something completely avoided by Hobart College students. Throughout the 1920s, Hobart College was certainly roaring. With the inclusion of more clubs, organizations, and fraternities, Hobart College was working hard to build a strong student population. Fraternal life was a significant aspect of student life. Fraternities in the early 20th century were beginning to extend beyond serious and secret brotherhoods. There began to be criticism that fraternities were becoming mere confederations of social pleasure. Alums were at times more loyal to their fraternity than to their alma mater, sending their sons to Hobart with hopes that they would be part of their father's fraternity. While this may go against the academic goals of Hobart College, it did help assure an influx of students, especially when times were difficult. Some fraternities that are still active on campus today are Kappa Alpha and Sigma Chi. Clubs and organizations were active on campus as well. Some examples are the Hobart Forum, which maintained a knowledge of current events and public affairs, the Hobart Debate Team, who competed against other colleges in the region, and the Christian Association, whose members worked to promote Christian life on campus. In the 1920s, Hobart College was closely associated with the Episcopal Church, and church attendance was necessary for graduation. The 1920s were a very different time than today. 100 years certainly has had its impact on Hobart and William Smith College. Yet, many things stand true. Hobart's students are still as active in on-campus organizations, and fraternal life is still a major aspect of Hobart students' social and academic life on campus. Looking back towards the 1920s can help give insight into how Hobart College should move forward into the next century. How will the COVID pandemic affect Hobart College as it moves into its next 100 years? And what different clubs and organizations and fraternities will start to become popular on campus, as different clubs and organizations and fraternities were popular on Hobart's campus 100 years ago. Does prohibition have any lasting effects on the student population today? 100 years is certainly a significant amount of time, and as Hobart College begins to celebrate its bicentennial anniversary, looking back those 100 years can help be a hallmark to the changes that have occurred throughout Hobart's campus over time. Some of that change can be seen in the larger campus size, the greater diversity of students, or in the greater technology that Hobart and William Smith colleges have been able to have access to in the 21st century. Yet many things remain the same. Students celebrating others' accomplishments like graduation, and organizations and fraternities contributing to the campus environment, challenging their peers, and encouraging their classmates to be passionate learners and statesmen.